And here we are for this week's Candle Knowledge. And, this week I want to talk about a dream that I had about my mother. In particular, it was definitely about my parents, but it eventually led to my mother. So essentially, back in July 2024, I was faced with some very tough decisions to make overall about my life. There were some things that were just evolving, changing overall, some things that I did not necessarily ask for, but they were coming my way. And I think one of the biggest things that I was faced with at that time was just trying to figure out if I wanted to stay in the state of California or not with some of the things I had to address. For those of you who don't know, yes, I do reside in California and I do enjoy my time out here and definitely didn't want to have to move, but it was something that, you just had some conversations you had to have amongst yourself with some people close to my inner circle and just overall what I want to do. Obviously, those big things that come up out here in California is that good old rent. And when those moments came up for me, it was just like, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to renew that lease or do I want to just maybe figure out something else, do something completely different? And it's so interesting. During this time, I end up having this dream about my parents. In this dream, I was in my old apartment that we resided in Palos Hills, which is the actual hometown area that where I'm from outside of Chicago, roughly about 30 or so minutes away from downtown Chicago. And we're in our old apartment, apartment 315. And, I could hear my father coming into the house. And, in this dream, I don't see my father, but I can hear him because he had a very distinct way of entering the home. And, in the dream, I'm in my old childhood bedroom on the top bunk because I shared bunk beds with my brother for a long time. So I'm sitting on the top bunk of my bed, and then my mother comes to our room. And when my mother enters the room, she sits down in our old chair that we had in that room, about near where my brother's desk was at. Classic stuff. And then she says, "I'm gonna go get my lungs checked today." And in the dream, I that was very foreshadowing to the health conditions that she had. And at the same time in the dream, after she said that, she started to bleed from her nose. And then in the dream, I come down from my top bunk down to the floor area that we're at. It's not that tall, it's not that high, but I just jumped down from there, which is something I used to do all the time as a kid as like a little stunt. Very dangerous, but so I do it here in this dream, and then I just basically say, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die knowing I gave it my all. After that dream, man, in July, I woke up the next day and all the type of doubts that I may have had about what to do next, what I was going to do next, man, I went ahead and signed that lease because the mindset to me was, you know, I'm not going to bet on hope for things to get better for me. I'm going to bet on myself. That was the mindset that I was in. And that dream represented that. It represented something about that fire and that desire to want to continue on. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die knowing I gave it my all. Those were the true words that were spoken in that dream. And I think that was just a general feeling of just determination. And it's just very fitting too to have that dream in July of 2024 because my mother had passed away in July in 2017. Very, very, very symbolic of what's, resting in my mind, deep in my mind. And that was stuck with me so much because I was in a tough position just thinking about what I wanted to do for myself. And I know that some people have found themselves in that, right? And they're looking for that answer. They're looking for that way to like, what do I do? What is the right move for me to move forward? What is that right move for me to make the right step for me and in my life or whatever I want to do? And it's bigger than just, I think renewing the lease was just, a sign of one bigger idea of like, do you want to continue on your pursuits for what you're trying to accomplish for yourself overall? Out here in California, it's always been about my career, working in live entertainment. So where do I go here from there if that's what I want to continue to pursue, etc. And for me to renew the lease and kind of continue on that journey, not having necessarily a clear answer about what was to come, it was that bet on myself, knowing that if I was really going to wrap things up, I'm going to wrap things up knowing that I gave it my all. And I think that's important because I just can't go without knowing that to be true about myself. I have nothing else but me to focus on, and my determination for myself outweighs any type of fear that I might have. And I've always been like that. I've always been able to step into the unknown and kind of charter onto that unknown territory, even though sometimes that unknown territory can be very scary. But that's what that dream represented to me. It represented that scariness. It's like the same thing with my mother saying she's gonna get her lungs checked today, and then her nose starts to bleed. Foreshadowing the illnesses that she was gonna have, but knowing that was a journey she had to go through to kind of understand what was going on with her. And things in that nature. That was just all part of that. Of just stepping into that unknown area. And for me, it's kind of me saying the same thing, having that same fire within me, knowing that I had some work to do on myself to continue to evolve because the journey wasn't going to be done. I wasn't going to leave this earth here, when my time does come, not understanding that or not knowing that I didn't give it my all, right? That had to be something that I knew that things were going to just wrap up for me just because things are changing. Well, I'll change and evolve as well. And that's something that I've always been good at. And that's something that I know that I can do very much so. So that's why that determination and me saying that was extremely important because no, I was not going to let anything stop me from moving forward. I was not going to let, one portion or part of my experiences come to an end until I say that it comes to an end. And I think that was what it was about me grabbing a hold of that and just saying, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die knowing I gave it my all. I'm not going to bet on hope that things are going to get better. I'm going to bet on myself and what I have within me. And that dream was just the right mindset that I needed to kind of put myself into gear and to do the internal work on myself to change things and evolve. But the very interesting thing was that wasn't the only and last dream. So obviously, kind of go on and go throughout life and things begin to improve and get better for me. I figure out some answers to some hard questions. I'm still able to make things work out for myself. And I would say I enter into 2025, early 2025, leading up to my mother's birthday. My mother's birthday is on the 1st of February. I have this dream once again. And this time it's just about my mom. And what is so crazy about this dream, and I feel like it definitely is connected to the first one to some degree, it just through the entire experience, it was very interesting where, my mom and I were connecting and we knew we were connecting in this dream space. To give you the backstory in this dream, I'm going to a mall that is not like a mall, but it's a mall in the sense of it having these escalators and these large buildings and stuff like that. And, I'm on the phone with my mom and I'm going through all these different places and we're basically talking to each other on the phone and I'm trying to get a hold of her. Now in the dream, my mom is kind of worried herself because this is a new mall. She keeps saying it's so big. I don't like how big this mall is. And, it's nice, but it's just too big. It's too big. And, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. Just stay there though. I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna find you. Just stay there. And I'm going through, and it's like first person view type of experience where like I can't see my own body, but I can just see my POV navigating through the dream. And I finally get a chance to actually lay eyes on my mother in the dream, right? You can see her from a distance. I can see her from a distance. And as we get closer to each other, I can see more of her. Her skin is a lot more pale, but she looks like herself, but it's just a lot more pale. She has a scar on her chest area, which is, right where, she had a history with breast cancer. And that's kind of the ultimate reason why she passed away. So she has a scar right there in her breast area where she was dealing with her battle with breast cancer. But as we get closer and closer to each other, we're walking towards each other to embrace, to give that hug. And usually, man, I don't know about some of y'all, but I've been in these dreams where when you try to reach out in the dream and try to grab somebody or grab something in the dream, it doesn't have to be a person. It can just be like an object. You usually just wake up from the dream, right? It's just like, okay, the moment you grab, you reach for it, you don't actually get a chance to touch it because, I don't know, something just happens where you just wake up. For the most part, it's happened to me like that quite often. But this time in this dream, as we go towards each other from a distance, we see each other and we walk towards each other, we finally get to touch and embrace. And it was very surreal where we can identify that we were both in this dream space together, that we were connected in this dream together, that this wasn't some type of random moment that we didn't understand. We understood where we were, right? I understood that my mother was gone. She's not alive. I understood that, this is a dream space. And I understand that I was fully dreaming in this moment. It was very vivid. Maybe the word lucid is the word I want to use. And as we embrace each other, we're just looking at each other. And that's how the dream just faded out, just like that. And then I wake up and I'm just like, okay, oh shit, I got to take down all these different notes. I got to get all this different stuff. I got to like, capture this because it was very, very, very vivid, very tangible. I've never had experience like that. And that just happened on my mother's birthday. And that was just like an ultimate sign that from the bet that I made on myself to stay in California, to not give up on pursuing goals and ambitions and dreams, but then also listening to the words of my parents and the things that they taught us about always putting your best self forward, not second guessing yourself, never going against yourself. And then having that dream where my mother, in the first dream that I had about her back in July in 2024, was about going to the hospital. And then now this dream that I have about her now, she is looking like herself. Even though she's passed away, it's kind of symbolic to say that she's all right. And it's very interesting that that happened on my mother's birthday. And my mother's birthday, again, she passed away in 2017. I've been through her birthday several times over. I never had a moment like this until, that this episode is being recorded at in 2025. And I just have to say, like, that was it was definitely an emotional moment, but not in a negative way. It was like in the sense of like feeling a sense of like, confirmation that she's still out there, confirmation that she's still there with me, confirmation that everything that you said to yourself about what you view about my mom, about myself, about my ambitions and everything, it's all true. That bet on yourself, that's what she would have wanted. That desire to see you continue to rise is what she would have wanted as well. And, for us to have that embrace on her birthday was like a gift, even though it's her birthday, it's a gift back to me, saying that, you did the right thing. You're still here and I'm still here too.